Protests turning violent in the aftermath of the two grand jury decisions involving deadly police force used in Ferguson, Missouri and New York City. What you're looking at right there was the scene in Berkeley, California. Police firing tear gas after they say protesters started throwing rocks and bottles at them and tried to set a patrol car on fire at one point. President Obama then addressed the issue of racism during his weekly address. Watch.
This is something that is deeply rooted in our society. It's deeply rooted in our history. But the two things that are going to allow us to solve it, number one, is the understanding that we have made progress. And so it's important to recognize, as painful as these incidents are, and we can't equate what's happening now to what was happening 50 years ago.
And from that interview, we go to this. A new poll finding 53% of adults say race relations have gotten worse since President Obama took office in 2009. It's worth noting, 45% of blacks agreed with what you're looking at there. Montel, I want to go to you first. I really have one overarching question. We have moved now weeks beyond at least the first non-indictment, grand jury non-indictment. That was Ferguson, Missouri. And now we've had a second here in New York City. But we're talking days away from that. What do the people in the streets want?
Well, you know, if you look at what happened in Berkeley and Oakland last night, I think a majority of those people out there were part of Occupy Oakland. They weren't even out there because they were out there because of this issue. So let's start to get back to where we should probably attempt to do this for the first time in reality in this country and have a real discussion about race. We just don't do it. We keep pointing at other directions, blaming other people, and making sure that, no, you've got to be wrong and you've got to be wrong. We can't even stop for a second and have a discussion. And until we do, this is going to happen. It's going to get worse because, again, this was occupied. This wasn't, if you remember, let's look at the faces. Zoom in a little bit. You know, about 3 weeks ago in Ferguson, you saw it was majority black faces. Now across this country, you see multi-ethnic, multi-racial. I saw two older Caucasian women getting whacked in the face last night on the news in Berkeley. Caucasian. So, again, the discussion's not about, are we more racist today than we were yesterday? Do we hate more black people today than we did yesterday? Why don't we have a discussion about what's the problem and discuss it?
I think one of the big problems is financial. I mean, if you look at what's happened in this country since the president has been in office, the divide between rich and poor has grown dramatically. A lot of that has to do with the Federal Reserve's policy. One of the things, the main thing that has increased has been the stock market. That has only benefited people who are wealthy enough to invest there. So I think that the income gap has widened dramatically since the financial crisis.
This is the excuse. We will not talk about the problem. It's about answering.
You think money's part of the problem?
No, it's not the problem. The problem, look, if it's money that's the problem, how about the fact that right now we have over 53% of our Congress that are millionaires plus, and about 28% of them are multimillionaires, and about 15 years ago we didn't have that. So what's going on in disparity in this country? What's going on in disparity in this country? Maybe the people passing some of the laws don't give a damn about the people no matter what color they are.
I think we're making the same point. So, I don't think we were disagreeing with each other there.
Money's the problem. Let's talk race. Race is the problem. In this country right now today, there are certain countries, cities in this country where, you know, blacks stand a chance of being incarcerated at 100 times more than any other race in that city, in this city alone.
So you bring up the point, though.
Let's have the discussion.
And it's worth
you don't think that's financially motivated either? You don't think that's about people trying to make money, can't make money? Money drives all these things.
Money and not talk about a race all you want, but it's just a game.
But it seems like the only time we ever talk about this is when people are rioting in the streets.
Correct.
I mean, and right now the narrative has become how many buildings are they going to burn, rather than let's get back to the actual thing, which was if people are upset with the court system in this country and they feel like that's not fair, I don't hear anybody talking about that. Jedediah?
Yeah, the problem is, you know, when I was in the midst of these protests in New York, though, what I saw from a lot of people taking selfies, people partying. So there is a segment of the population that protests just to protest and aren't really interested in having a discussion. It's really easy to blame President Obama for this, but it's not his fault. This is a community-based problem. It has to start at the dinner table. It has to start among families. This is not his fault. And there was an unfair expectation placed on
families.
Families.
The breakdown of the family. And this is not something that is just in the black community, Montel. The breakdown of the American family among whites, among Hispanics, you go down the list. And I do agree with you on the money perspective, but I think family and the breakdown of family is a huge part of a lot of this as well.
A huge
as long as we don't ever talk the issue, it'll never get solved.
Yep, that's exactly true. We are going to shift over to my alma mater.